Hi, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and we're going to be talking about my collection. Now, my last bunch of videos, I've been posting toy reviews, mostly G.I. Joes. So today I thought I would do something a little different and talk about some of the comic books in my collection. So I've got a lot of comic books in my collection. So rather than delving deep into the old stuff, I'm just going to talk about what's in my stack right now. So that's why we're up in my bedroom instead of down in the man cave. Because when I buy new books, I stack them up here on my nightstand. They get filed in a white comic box right down here. Once that comic box is full, I take that downstairs, empty it out, file everything away alphabetically, which is a huge pain in the butt because I've got stacks and stacks of comic boxes down there. And yeah, so this is what's in my stack currently, waiting to be filed away in the little box. Now, for those of you who've watched my past videos, this is Casey. I'm going to put her down in a second. I've had a couple false starts on this intro already because Casey and Buster are full of energy this morning and they're tearing around all over the house. So once I put her down, you'll probably hear a little bit of pitter-patter. That's just the animals running around, so just ignore that. So I've got two stacks here. I've got a stack of stuff that I've read and needs to be filed, and this other stack of stuff that I haven't read yet. So this isn't everything that I'm buying. This is just kind of a snapshot of my collection of what I've bought in the last few weeks. So first let me talk a little bit about what I have already read. So this is Kaiju Max by Xander Cannon. If you're not familiar with it, it's been around for a couple of years now. This is season 4. He just does 6-issue seasons. So there's been 3 6-issue seasons prior, which you can buy in collected editions now. And he just put out a nice hardcover, I think, of the first 2 seasons together. So this is a really good book that my friend Dave turned me on to. It's got kind of a cartoony style. But the premise is that it's basically a bunch of kaijus, big Godzilla type monsters, and they're in a supermax prison for kaijus. So the prison guards walk around in big mech suits, like they look like Power Rangers and stuff, and they just keep everything in order. And it looks like a kiddie book, but it's really not. They deal with some adult themes, even though they keep it... it's not gory. There's a lot of swearing, but the swear words are all made up, all pulled from kind of old monster movies and stuff. It's really neat. It's got its own dialogue. Yeah, I recommend checking it out for sure. So Kaiju Max by Xander Cannon. He writes, draws it. I think probably inks and colors it. It's a one-man show. Yeah, and there's a lot of nice extras in there too. He does kaiju film reviews and yeah, answers letters. So by all means, check it out. So next up, I've got a couple of Conan books. I'm not really reading Conan yet, but Marvel just got the license back to do Conan comic books. And they've got some really good, talented writers and artists on there, and I'm excited to read them. However, most books now I prefer to buy in the collected editions, this format. It's just easier to store them. You don't have to put them in the plastic and put them in boxes. You can just put them directly on a bookshelf like that. So most new books I collect that way. So I'm going to be waiting for the collected editions of the new Conan. But to kind of refamiliarize readers with Conan, Marvel put out these $1 reprints of some of their old like 70s, 80s Conan comic books. So I thought, yeah, I'll check these out. And they were both okay. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the new stuff. So next up, these 3 here. So I've got Space Cowboy and the Triumphateers, Street Fighter Man, and Grand Adventure. Now these comics are the first 3, and so far the only comics published by Grandway Comics. And these were done by just a couple of local guys here in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. So they were all fun. They're really they've got a retro, like 70s Marvel style to them. Even the newsprint, like they smell like old 70s comic books. And yeah, they're just a really high quality stuff for to be produced locally here. There's like fun ad on the back for a fictional toy based on the Space Cowboy comic book. Yeah, I don't know if these are easy to find outside of Halifax, and especially outside Canada, but I would say if you want to check them out, and I really recommend you do, either Google Grandaway Comics and get a hold of them directly, or you could check with Cal, the owner of Strange Adventures comic book shop here in Halifax. I think he's tight with these guys. Strange Adventures is my local comic shop where I've been going to for the last 20 or so years. So yeah, get in touch with those guys and they can probably get these books to you. So next up is a new Spider-Man book. So I just started buying Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So I've got here issues 1 and 2. Now, when new books start, as I just told you, I generally would wait for the collection. But with Spider-Man, that's the one thing I always have to buy monthly. And mostly for that is because I've been buying Amazing Spider-Man monthly since I was 8 years old. And I just don't want to break up the collection. And oftentimes when there's multiple Spider-Man books being published, they tie into one another. So part 1 of a story will be in here, and part 2 will be in Amazing. So if I keep buying Amazing monthly, and this, I have to wait 6 months to get the collection, the story's going to be all disjointed. So every time there's a new Spider-Man related book, I've got to buy that in the monthly format. As for this book, the jury's still out. It's okay. I'm not loving it. I could have done without it. Amazing Spider-Man already comes out 2 or 3 times a month, so to have an extra monthly Spider-Man comic book is a little much. Although thankfully it did replace Spectacular Spider-Man, so it's not like I have to buy 3 Spider-Man core books. There's back down to just 2. But I don't know why they didn't just keep going with Spectacular. I'm not a fan of them constantly rebooting things like this. And the premise behind Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I guess the reason why they went with that title and didn't just continue Spectacular, is because they really wanted to focus on Peter Parker and his neighborhood, because they feel in Amazing Spider-Man he's going on all these big, grand, epic space adventures and stuff. And so they wanted to get back to Spidey's roots. So just him dealing with, street-level thugs, dealing with Peter's social problems a little bit more. However, and a spoiler alert, at the end of the first issue, Peter gets saddled with a couple of alien children. And yeah, so he finds these like space kids in his hamper. And it just seemed like an odd choice when you marketed this book as like, this is going to be kind of the street level neighborhood version Spider-Man, and in the first issue we're already dealing with aliens or whatever those kids turn out to be. It seemed like a weird direction to go. Anyway, hopefully it gets better. So next up is, as I mentioned, Amazing Spider-Man. So this here is issue 13 and 14. Now, I hate the renumbering. I won't get into all that. I could do a whole episode ranting about the renumbering. They've rebooted Amazing Spider-Man about 6 times in the last 10 years. And I guess to counter fans being pissed off about that, you'll notice in the corner of these comics they give this number underneath 14, which is the legacy numbering. So these issues are actually issues 818 and 814 if you were considering these all one long run from the very first issue back in the 60s. So Amazing Spider-Man, this most recent reboot that started with issue 1 of this run here, I was sort of excited for it. I really liked everything that had been come before, and I don't like that they reboot it every time a new creator comes on. But Nick Spencer, who just had pretty high profile runs of Captain America, he was coming on the book, and also Ryan Otley, the artist from Incredible, which if you haven't read Incredible, I highly recommend checking that out. It wrapped up a short while ago. It ran, I don't know, I want to say 160 issues or something. Ryan Ottley drew most of that run. It was written by Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead. Great series. The art was really fun, and it seemed perfectly suited for Spider-Man. And I do think it's perfectly suited for Spider-Man. I'm just not sure on Nick Spencer's writing yet. Again, he started things off with a really weird kind of clone thing, which, you know, we just had a clone saga before that. People are over clones, so it seemed like a weird choice. Now, I wish I could show you Ottley's art, because it is amazing. Although I think we've got it here he did the covers for these books, but he didn't actually do the interiors. Who we got here? Oh, you know what? Otley did do the inside of this. So there's some really nice artwork in there. This one is by Chris Bachalo. Now, he's got a very unique style here. And I'm a big fan of his, too. I really liked his book Steampunk from a few years back. And prior to that, he was at Marvel doing Spider-Man. So he's been around a while. So yeah, amazing. Pretty consistently good. There's little snags here and there, but they always have A-list talent on that book, and so yeah, that's always a safe bet. Next up is another Spider-Man book. This is Superior Spider-Man. Now, Superior Spider-Man, so far I'm actually really digging this book. This is only issue 2. Issue 3 just came out, but I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. This book is about Dr. Octopus as Spider-Man. Now, if that sounds odd to you, there is some backstory to that, which it would take too long to get into. But basically, Dr. Octopus is reborn. He's got a new body because his old body died. And when he came back to life, he's got some of Peter Parker's and Spider-Man's memories. So he's trying to be a good guy. And for a while, he was walking around as a superior octopus, which made more sense, but probably didn't sell as well. So now he's the superior Spider-Man. It seems kind of weird that we've got another Spider-Man swinging around the city, but whatever. It's a good book so far. So yeah, hopefully that stays on the right track. So that's it for my monthly books. As I said, I don't collect much monthly other than Spider-Man titles. Kaiju Max, I don't know why I started buying that monthly. I think I was skeptical about it, so I just picked up one rather than wait for the trade and spend $20 on a trade. But I got hooked really early on, and then I just had to keep coming back. But yeah, generally I'd wait for the trades. So here's some of the trades I've read recently. So this is Darth Vader, and I was disappointed to find out when I got to the end of this that this is the last issue, the last series of Darth Vader. Marvel is still publishing multiple Star Wars books, and there's actually a new, I think, Darth Vader miniseries coming out after this. But this is the last book in Charles Soule's run, and it was really cool. So sad to see it go. But yeah, this was a good book. I recommend. So I don't buy a lot of DC anymore, but I did pick up Metal, which is kind of an event book, sort of like the Infinite Crisis and Final Crisis and all that sort of stuff. So this one looked kind of confusing. For the last year or so I've been seeing these books come out, and there was a lot of prelude books and tie-in books, and I didn't really get what it was all about. A dark multiverse and evil versions of all the Justice League, and yeah, I wasn't sure if I'd dig it, but Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, who are a great team, who've been doing really cool things on the regular Batman book. They're not on Batman anymore, but they did do this series, which focuses mostly on Batman. And I don't know. I was confused by it. Like, the art is nice, and maybe if I was buying more DC stuff or still buying Batman on the regular, it wouldn't have been as confusing, but I'm not sure that's the case. I do know DC history pretty well, and this delves deep. You kind of have to be a big DC fan, I think, to really appreciate all the layers of this thing. But the DC universe has become pretty confusing the last few years since they've rebooted the universe, and certain characters that existed before hadn't existed. So I'm seeing characters in this like the Red Tornado, and people are like, oh, who's this guy? And I'm like, we all know who that is, but I guess we don't know who he is anymore. I don't know. Looked great. I read a lot of other reviews online for this, and everybody was giving it really high ratings, talking about how fun it was. I didn't have fun reading it. I wouldn't necessarily not recommend it because it does look really nice, and you know, there's all kinds of characters that pop up in here. So if you like some random obscure character, chances are they pop up in here somewhere. But overall, yeah, well, it's kind of a tough read. So next up is Transformers Lost Light. Now this is written by James Roberts, and this is the end of his series. As IDW is actually ending their whole Transformers universe, which they've been doing for, I think, 13 years or something, since they took over the license from Dreamwave. And yeah, so they're ending all their Transformer books. Right now they're publishing 2 or 3 of them, so they're all coming to an end. This is the end of this particular series, and then IDW is going to be rebooting it very soon. So Lost Light is James Robertson writing it since the beginning. I don't know how many issues it is in total, because it originally launched with the title More Than Meets the Eye, and that ran for quite a while, and then they rebooted it with the title Lost Light, but the storyline just carried on as it was. And it focuses on kind of a group of misfit Transformers that are off on a mission separate from what else is going on in the main books. So if you like Optimus Prime, Starscream, Bumblebee, they're all doing stuff in the main book, and this is just kind of its own thing. Now, surprisingly, there are actually some pretty mainstream characters in here, like Megatron, for example, and so that takes Megatron off the table for the main Transformers book. But other than that, there's little characters that nobody had really heard of or cared about before this book. Characters like Swerve and Tailgate are the main characters in this book. And I absolutely adored this book from issue 1. Anybody that's been with it for a long time will tell you it's one of the greatest comic book series, I think, ever. Like, I've been reading comic books for a long time, and it's pretty rare when I get misty-eyed reading a comic book, especially one based on a toy of transforming robots. But he writes amazing characters, and he goes places you don't expect. I'm really sad to see this book come to an end. But hopefully he's got another project coming out, and I guarantee I'll be there reading it. So next up, I've got Sir Edward Grey Witchfinder. Now this is a part of the Hellboy universe. And yeah, so this is the 5th volume of Witchfinder. Anything in the Mike Mignola Hellboy universe, I enjoy. This was good. I've read it. This has been sitting on my desk here for a couple of weeks. Already, I'd be struggling to tell you the specifics of what happened to it, so it wasn't necessarily super memorable as far as the storyline goes, but I just always really enjoy reading these. When I start one of these, I read it from start to finish. I can't put these down. I love anything in the Mike Mignola universe, and so yeah, this was good. Next up is Moon Knight. Now, this is only volume 2 in this version of Moon Knight, and this is the end. It was rather short-lived, and I am glad, because I hate to say it, I hate to trash anybody's work, although I doubt, I think it's Max Bemis that writes this. I doubt he'll watch this video, but yeah, this sucked bad. And the first volume, I didn't love either, but I wouldn't have gone out of my way to say it was horrible. I was just like, okay, this guy's trying something out. He's got a new spin on things. He introduced a daughter to Moon Knight that he never knew he had, and which was kind of like, okay, well, we'll see where this goes. And it goes into the toilet. It's like, this was horrible. The whole time I was reading this, I was like, God, let it end. I'm like, I don't think I can keep buying Moon Knight after this, which sucks because I've been buying Moon Knight consistently since I was a little kid. Now, it hasn't been published consistently like Spider-Man has been, but every time they reboot Moon Knight, which they do a lot, I'm there. I buy the whole run, so I've got all the Moon Knight books. And so as I was reading this, I'm like, God, I don't think I can keep buying Moon Knight as long as Max Bemis is writing it. And yeah, so he's not. So I don't know if that's based on sales or this was always intended to just always run the 12 issues that are contained in the 2 volumes. But yeah, if you're a Moon Knight fan, I think you can skip over this and go find some of the better stuff. or wait for the next reboot, which I'm sure is just months away. Next up, Daredevil. Now, this is also written by Charles Soule, the same guy that was writing the Darth Vader comic. And his run is coming to an end very soon as well, as they've just rebooted Daredevil. I think the first issue of the new series just came out. Cool little tidbit. In between this series that has ended and the new one that launched, there was a 5-issue miniseries that was written by a guy from Halifax. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, this has been really good. I've enjoyed Soule's work on this book since he started it. Daredevil is one of those characters that his book has just been consistently good for years and years and years. They keep finding cool ways to fuck up Daredevil's life, and yeah, I really like it. And this book here, one of the when it relaunched, and again they relaunched with a new #1 just because a new writer was on it and all that stuff. But I was really excited about it. I wasn't super familiar with Soule at the time, but Ron Garney was the artist. Love Ron Garney. Garney's been off the book for a while, but so who's the guy on this one now? It's Mike Henderson. Not familiar with him, but he does a bang-up job. This is a great-looking book. I'll try and find a cool splash page that I can share with you. But yeah, it just looks great all the way through. But yeah, where's a good action shot or something? I don't know. But his Daredevil looks great. His Matt Murdock looks great. So yeah, I recommend this book too. This is Planet of the Apes. This is a miniseries based on General Ursus, and yeah, it was pretty cool too. It's set during the original Planet of the Apes movies, but it kind of spins off, so you see things that, like, while what we were seeing on screen was happening, General Ursus is off doing stuff on the sidelines that we never knew about. So there's times when it really interconnects with the movie, which was pretty cool. And I really like the Planet of the Apes movies published by Boom for the most part. They've done some really cool stuff with the Planet of the Apes. And this one here I thought started strong, but kind of fizzled out. And yeah, worth a read. Again, nice artwork in here. I think there was a couple different artists on this book. But yeah, if you like Planet of the Apes stuff, check it out. But Boom does have better stuff out there too. So yeah. Next up is the BPRD, which is another book in the Hellboy universe. This is the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense that Hellboy works for. Although Hellboy hasn't been in this book for like 10 plus years, because Hellboy has been dead. Now, Hellboy did still have a solo book, and he was off on solo adventures kind of after he died. He was in hell doing things, but he just recently came back to join the BPRD at I think the last page of the last collection. So this story here is the first one of Hellboy being back with the BPRD after all this time. And this book is, I don't know if it runs in actual real time, but, in Spider-Man, he's been probably 29 or 30 years old for the last 30 years or so. But with BPRD, the character's age, time has passed, so Hellboy hasn't been in the book for 10 years. But if this was a Marvel book, they'd say, Hellboy, where have you been all month? But this one, he's been gone for 10 years. And like I was saying before with Witchfinder, these books never disappoint, and BPRD is kind of the flagship book, and this was fantastic. So good. I don't want to ruin anything for you, but there's character deaths, everything's shocking. It's so good. I'll probably be reading it again before it gets filed away. And last up in my recently read stack is Cosmic Ghost Rider. Now, this was a character I didn't think I necessarily love, but he's pretty fun. He was introduced in the Thanos comic book a little while ago. It was set in the future, and future Thanos has Cosmic Ghost Rider as kind of his right-hand man. And it's revealed that Cosmic Ghost Rider is actually Frank Castle, the Punisher, who has lived millions of years, and he worked with Galactus, and then Thanos killed Galactus and took him over, and he's completely lost his mind. So he's a really funny character. You wouldn't think merging Ghost Rider and Punisher would make for a comedic character, but it does. And he was really fun in that book. And so yeah, now he's spun off into this miniseries, and from here now he's a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So he's really taken off. I don't normally speculate, and I don't collect for money wise, but I don't know what it goes for now. But it's only a year or so old. I would recommend going out and getting the first appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider, because I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next Spider-Gwen or something. This might really skyrocket. So not only is he's a neat character, it delves into kind of cool corners of Ghost Rider and Punisher and Cosmic Marvel, and yeah, it's a fun book. So check it out. So now on to the stack of stuff I haven't read yet. First one here is Transformers Energon. This is an old book. The reason this is sitting here is because I recently got sent away to where was I? Newfoundland for work, which is another province, and I was there staying in a hotel for a few days. And I was kind of bored. There's a comic shop down the street. There's not a whole lot of new stuff I can buy because I buy everything from Strange Adventures. So I was looking through their old stuff. They had a box of $5 graphic novels. So I picked this up just because I enjoy the Transformers so much, but I'm really a Generation 1 Transformers guy. This is based on one of the kind of like later era cartoons. It's got a more of a Japanese manga style. And the artwork is kind of weird. I assume maybe it was originally published digitally or something. It's got kind of like a fuzzy look to it, like it's pixelated almost. Anyway, you'll see how far I got. Not very. I wasn't really feeling it. So that's why that was months ago when I was in Newfoundland. All the other books I bought there have since been filed away, but this one here, it keeps getting pushed to the bottom of the stack, so that's why this is around. Next up is Thor by Walter Simonson. This is volume 4. Thor is one of the few Marvel characters I didn't read as a kid. Me and my brother, between the two of us, we collected Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, Captain America, the Avengers, all kinds of stuff. But Thor, we just weren't really into. But as I've gotten older, I've become much more of a fan of Thor. I've collected a lot of Thor books in recent years, stuff written by Jason Aaron. And this has always been regarded as the definitive run of Thor. Walter Simonson wrote and drew this book for years in the 80s. And so I thought, you know what, I need to go back and check out this best Thor run of all time. And it has been a ton of fun. So I've read through the first 3 volumes, and now I'm on to the 4th. Again, it's kind of on the bottom of the stack. Every time I go to the comic shop to get new books, I tend to read the newer stuff first, and this kind of just goes down the stack. But that's not to diss on its quality at all. It's a good book. Yeah. This is another one that's been sitting by my bed for a long time. This is the Complete Machine Man by Jack Kirby, and Kirby and Ditko. Ton of fun, vintage artwork. It looks great, and really enjoyed it. Although I'm not very far through, it's because I've been catching up on a lot of old Kirby stuff, and I've bought a few of these big, thick collections. And these old comics, they're very dialogue heavy. They take a long time to get through. It's just a different reading experience than reading a current comic book. And so, yeah, sometimes it's just a lot to take in. So after reading a previous Kirby collection, this one I'm just kind of slow going. I think I need a little bit of a break before I really delve into it. So this one has been sitting here a while. But again, it's not a knock on the quality of the book. Obviously, these two legends in the comic book industry. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into this eventually. So next in the stack, Green Lantern. Green Lantern, this is the only DC book I've been buying consistently for the last, 10 to 15 years. And Green Lantern was not a character I really cared about when I was a kid. If you had asked me, which DC character do you think you'll be collecting on the regular, Batman, Superman, even The Flash, would have all taken place over Green Lantern. But a few years back, this particular Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, which is the Green Lantern most people know, he died in the comic books. Again, I wasn't reading DC at the time. I didn't know anything really about that. And he was out of the picture. I knew there was other Green Lanterns running around. There was John Stewart and Kyle, and yeah, so wasn't really on my radar. And then this guy Jeff Johns took over the Green Lantern book, and he brought Hal Jordan back to life in a miniseries called Rebirth, and then he went on from there. And he introduced the concept of the Yellow Lanterns, and then the Red Lanterns, and the Orange Lanterns, and this whole crazy universe just expanded wider and wider. And I kept hearing good things about it. I was like, all right, I'll check this book out. And so I started reading Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern from the beginning. And yeah, I was hooked. I've been a big fan of Green Lantern ever since, and I haven't stopped buying it since. So Jeff Johns hasn't been on the book for several years. But a lot of cool writers have taken over since. I buy all the spin-off books as well. There have been books like the Green Lantern Corps, the Lost Lanterns, and all the other different Lanterns have had spin-off books. And they've all been good. I just really like the Green Lantern universe. So thank you, Jeff Johns, for getting me into it. And yeah, this is actually the end of this particular Green Lantern run. So this is, I don't know if I'll pronounce this right, Robert Venditti. He's been writing this book for the last several years. So this is the end of his run. And there's a new book coming out by Grant Morrison that's writing the new book. So yeah, I think issue 1, maybe issue 2 of that has been out now. So I'm looking forward to that. A rebooted Green Lantern, but I'll be waiting for the collection. All right, next up, we've got Optimus Prime. So this is another one of the core Transformer books being published by IDW, and this is the end of this series. And I'll be honest with you, I've been putting off reading it. I've had it for a couple of weeks, but I kind of don't want to read it. I don't want the Transformers universe to end. So it's been good. Optimus Prime hasn't been nearly as good as Lost Light, I don't think. Lost Light is head and shoulders above the other Transformers books, but I've been enjoying them all. And yeah, this will be just the end of an era that I don't want to see end, but I'll probably be through this by the end of the week. Next up, I've got Black Hammer, which is a book by Jeff Lemire, Canadian creator, I believe. And yeah, this is book 3, although I think there's been a couple of spin-offs as well, so there's probably like 6 books in the Black Hammer universe by now. And just for budgeting wise, I try not to buy new books. I kind of keep my blinders on sometimes with these things, but again, sort of like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, or like with Kaiju Max, I was just hearing too much good stuff, and I was like, all right, I have to check out this book. And sure enough, it's been a lot of fun. So I keep coming back. I bought most of the spin-offs, and yeah, so I don't know if I'm loving it as much as some of the other people are out there, but yeah, it's definitely something different. I like a lot of the stuff that Jeff Lemire's done, Sweet Tooth. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, go for it. Next up, this is Dr. Aphra. So this is a Star Wars book, again by Marvel. And she was a character that was introduced in the Darth Vader comic book. Not the one written by Charles Soule, but the previous incarnation of that book. And yeah, she, I guess, proved popular because she has spun off into her own book. And this particular volume, which is volume 4, covers issues 20 to 25. So I think that's pretty impressive for a character that really didn't exist in the movies to be lasting for 25 plus issues. And so far, yeah, I've really enjoyed the book. I enjoy her as a character, and I'm looking forward to getting action figures of her and her compatriots, like this evil C-3PO and evil R2-D2 that she hangs out with. So yeah, good book. Next up, I've got The Last Daredevil. So I already told you that I read volume 7. This is volume 8. I think they kind of rushed these out one after the other because they had the new book starting relatively quickly. So yeah, I liked 7. Curious to see how it wraps up. I just haven't had time to read this. Probably because I've been too busy dicking around making these videos. Next up, Bebop and Rocksteady. This is a spin-off of the Ninja Turtles book by IDW. And to be honest, the Ninja Turtles book, I was skeptical about getting into it when IDW got the license and started publishing it, but I thought, well, I'll try it out anyway, and I did really enjoy it for a long time. And the last couple collections, and they usually cover about 5 to 6 issues each, the last couple haven't really been doing it for me, and I've been really considering dropping Ninja Turtles. And so when I saw this spin-off was coming out, I was like, all right, well, if I'm thinking of dropping the main book, I could really probably not buy all these spin-offs because there's a lot of them. But Bebop is my favorite character from the Turtles universe. So I thought, well, I'll buy this one. And who knows, maybe if this one turns out to be really good, it will get me excited about Turtles again. But as for right now, well, I'll keep you posted. But yeah, I hope this is good. And last up in my stack is 2 hardcover volumes. I don't normally buy hardcover, but this is volume 1 and volume 2 of Crimson, which I can't tell you really anything about. I remember when this comic book first came out years ago. I want to say maybe the early 2000s. But it wasn't really on my radar at all. And the artist, however, Humberto Ramos, and again, I haven't looked at these yet, so I don't want to spoil anything for myself. I'm just trying to find a good example of his artwork. And I can tell you just by looking at it, his artwork has improved quite a bit. But, yeah, I don't know. So, but Humberto, he's one of these guys that started off on an indie book like this, and then he started working for Marvel, and he came over and he was doing Spider-Man, still doing Spider-Man now. And I just fell in love with his style. It almost looks like graffiti sometimes, the exaggerated hands and feet. It's kind of cartoony, but really, really cool. So yeah, Humberto Ramos is one of my favorite working artists these days. And I always kind of thought one of these days I should go back and check out, Crimson, one of his like creator-owned books. Just never really got around to it. And then the other week, Strange Adventures, my comic shop, was doing an auction for the Children's Hospital here, and they put up a bunch of stuff with very low starting bids, and some of the stuff like original sketches by comic book artists or variant covers, and some rare items. Some of them really got up there, but this one here, I think somebody had bid 15 and I bid 20 and I won it. So yeah, considering that these are both marked at $45 a piece Canadian, to get them for $10 a piece was a pretty good deal. So I've got a lot of other stuff to read before I get to it, but when I do, I guess I'll let you know if it's any good. But yeah, looking forward to checking it out. So yeah, so that's my stack. That's what I'm reading this month. Maybe I'll do another one of these in another month, and I'll have a whole new stack of stuff. But yeah, if you've got any thoughts about any of these things, if you're reading any of them, or you like any of these recommendations, yeah, feel free to like and comment and subscribe.